I know Vice President Kamala Harris has just selected her VP candidate for the election this year. I'll focus on that on a later post. But let's take some time out to get back to Project 2025. The stats that you're looking at were taken from the U.S. Army Center of Military History. What you're looking at is the percentage breakdown of the racial demographics in the U.S. Army in 1974. If you don't know, 1974 is when they did away with the draft and they started going to all-volunteer service. Well, this was the last stats for that year. African Americans made up about 20% of enlisted personnel. Caucasians were the majority, comprising around 70 to 75% of the Army's personnel. Hispanics were about 4 or 5%. Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders was about 1 or 2%, and Native Americans made up about 0.5% to 1%. I'm assuming 1974, prior to an all-volunteer service, when it was a draft, Project 2025 was happy with those numbers. But they don't seem to be happy now. Because on page 109 of Project 2025, it says, "Stop using the Army as a test bed for social evolution. Misusing the Army in this way detracts from its core purpose while doing little to reshape the American social structure. The Army no longer reflects national demographics to a degree that it did before 1974 when the draft was eliminated." The Army no longer reflects national demographics to the degree that it did before 1974 when the draft was eliminated. These stats are taken from usfact.org. As of 2024, the racial and ethnic demographics of the Army's active component are as follows: white, not Hispanic, 54%, black, not Hispanic, 20%, Hispanic, 17%, Asian and Pacific Islanders, 6.9%, American Indian and Alaska Native, 0.9, and unknown other, 0.8. I hope you can see these two charts. The two charts I just read from. The bottom is 1974, the top is 2024, a 50-year gap. African Americans, 20% in 1974, 20.2 in 2024, a 0.2 increase. White, not Hispanic or Caucasian. In 1974, Caucasians made up about 7 to 75% of the Army. In 2024, they make up 54%. They dropped. Hispanics, in 1974, they were 4.5. In 2024, it's 17.2. They increased. Asian or Pacific Islander and American Indian and Alaska Native, they're around 7% collectively. In 2024, they were a lot smaller in 1974. The Army no longer reflects national demographics to a degree that it did before 1974 when the draft was eliminated. In 2022, the largest racial or ethnic group in the U.S. was the white group, which had a population of 251.6 million people. Between 1974 and 2022, the white population had the most growth, increasing by 66 million, from 185.6 million in 1974 to 251.6 million in 2022. So from what I can understand, Project 2025 is saying that since in the last 50 years, the white population has increased by, roughly 66 million people, but enlisted people and officers in the Army has decreased by 25%. So based on what Project 2025 is saying, they need the Army to reflect national demographics because it hasn't reflected it since the draft, because the draft was them forcing people to join. And I guess when they were drafting people, when it was supposed to be like a lottery, they were really picking more white people to join, but not Vietnam. They were sending them black people and Hispanic people to Vietnam. So solely based on the numbers, Project 2025 want to make the Army white again. What do you think?